Maybe I'm not going to take Zach's word for it, but maybe I'll go out and do some independent research. Maybe I'll become scientifically literate so I can understand this at a deeper level.
Good advice, Zach. Let's do that.
On one hand, people support these problematic dog training approaches because they think they're necessary, which we know is not true based on the scientific consensus in behavior science spanning fields of biology, psychology, ethology, neuroscience, and more, right?
So, Zak George's claim is that there is a scientific consensus that aversives are unnecessary, not only for training, but also for behavior modification, with a limited exception for emergency situations.
Show me the actual data because I've seen it and I don't think you have. Okay. Well, I mean, tell that to the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior. I'm telling it to you. You are lying about seeing the data and show the data. No, I'm not. If you want to go look at the data, I made a video called Dog Training Crisis. We outline a lot of sources.
Let's just take a quick peek at what those are.
Let's go ahead and say that you're dead correct, right? My sources suck. They're bad. This is Zak George just trying to manipulate the public into thinking something is true that isn't. Okay, show me your sources.
That is unnecessary, thanks. I will agree that the scientific sources cited by you in your state of emergency, the dog training crisis is here, the case against aversive tools, are sufficiently credible for our purposes. Or at least the first two, which are the ones I read. They are also the only two meta-studies, or studies of studies as you like to call them, that I noted on your list. They are also quoted in the AVSAB position statement. These are: 1. Do aversive-based training methods actually compromise dog welfare? A literature review, 2017. And 2. The effects of using aversive training methods in dogs, a review, 2016. The tiny URL links you provided redirect to the paper abstracts. However, I was able to obtain full copies of the text and did so. I will not be addressing the merits of these papers or the merits of compulsion, balanced, or force-free training in this video. We will exclusively confine this discussion to whether or not there is a scientific consensus that the use of aversives are unnecessary. Basically, I will not be examining if aversives are necessary, but only if it is a settled question among scientists that aversives are unnecessary. Let's view some direct quotes from the paper and determine whether or not they support the statement that there is a scientific consensus that the use of aversives are unnecessary. We'll start with the quote that probably provides the strongest support for Zak George's position. In conclusion, those working with or handling dogs should rely on positive reinforcement methods and avoid using positive punishment and negative reinforcement as much as possible. I will not go into whether or not this conclusion is a good or a bad one. However, it does not support the statement that there is a scientific consensus that the use of aversives are unnecessary. The phrase, as much as possible, actually suggests that the author contemplates scenarios where avoiding the use of aversives is not possible, i.e., that aversives are sometimes necessary. This study argues for Lima, that is to say, least invasive, minimally aversive. In fact, it does so explicitly later on in the paper. It does not say that aversives are unnecessary in all known instances, nor could science based on sound statistical analysis even make such a claim. For an accessible explanation as to why that is, I will do my best to create a separate video. In the meantime, I will quote from the same paper. It is recommended that the dog training community embrace rewards-based training and avoid as much as possible training methods that include aversion. For this purpose, it is proposed that Friedman's 2009 Hierarchy of Intervention Strategies may be a good tool for choosing the least intrusive yet effective behavior modification tools. Friedman lists 6 levels of intervention. 1. Arranging distant antecedents. 2. Arranging immediate antecedents. 3. Positive reinforcement. 4. Differential reinforcement or alternative behavior. 5. negative punishment, negative reinforcement, extinction, and 6, punishment, which is the most intrusive. According to Friedman, levels 1 to 4 are sufficient for solving the vast majority of behavioral problems in animals. Level 5 may occasionally, and under certain circumstances, be effective and the ethical choice. Level 6 is rarely needed or suggested when the practitioner has good training skills and the required knowledge of behavior. If aversive or intrusive methods are chosen, the competence of the handler is critical in order that they may achieve the proper timing and consistency required to allow for the quick learning and to avoid abusing dogs and threatening their physical and mental well-being. It is important to note that Friedman does not only make an exception for purely reactive emergency management, such as pulling your dog away from an oncoming car. Friedman explicitly refers to using aversives in behavior modification, and although level 5 interventions are occasionally and level 6 interventions, that is to say the ones involving positive punishment, are rarely needed or suggested, Friedman never states that they are never necessary, or that there is a scientific consensus on the matter. Causality cannot be established from the data in these studies, as it is not known whether the dog's aggression or the presence of behavior problems led to the use of aversive training methods, or whether the use of aversive training methods caused aggression and other behavior problems. Hence, the results of such studies should be interpreted appropriately and serve as a basis for future studies that are based on direct observation or scientific interventions, rather than as a basis for casual inference. Not only does this quote not support the statement that there is scientific consensus that the use of aversives is not necessary, it actually specifies that it could not be determined from the scientific body of evidence available whether or not the use of aversives present a risk to public safety. Now let's move on to the second meta-analysis you cited. Generally, the published studies suggest that the use of aversive-based methods is correlated with indicators of compromised welfare in dogs, namely stress-related behaviors and training, elevated cortisol levels, and problematic behaviors such as fear and aggression. However, there are a number of limitations that prevent any strong conclusions from being drawn. This quote clearly does not support the existence of a scientific consensus that the use of aversives are necessary. Regarding the relationship between training method and problematic behaviors, the evidence is contradictory, yet stronger in the direction of a positive correlation between the use of aversive-based methods and the appearance of problematic behaviors in dogs. However, as discussed further below, with this study design, it is not possible to draw conclusions about cause and effect from the correlation association. This quote clearly does not support the existence of a scientific consensus that the use of aversives are unnecessary. In fact, it goes further than that and actually says that it is not possible to draw such a conclusion based on the then current body of scientific evidence. Put simply, there is a chicken and egg problem, and the brightest scientific minds, to paraphrase Zak, know that there is a chicken and an egg problem. Inconsistency and poor timing in the application of the reinforcers and/or punishers generate unpredictability and controllability of the stimulus delivery and may therefore lead to stress. Additionally, a lower effectiveness of training method may generate more unpredictability and uncontrollability, and consequently an increase in stress. The existing literature is, however, inconsistent in that 3 studies suggest a higher efficiency of reward-based methods over aversive-based methods, whereas another points in the opposite direction, and the 5th shows no difference between the 2 types of methods. As previously stated, this video only focuses on whether there is a scientific consensus that the use of aversives are unnecessary. This quote clearly does not support such a statement. There are good explanations for the seemingly contradictory results, which I will address in a separate video if I can find the time. Based on this review, we conclude that although there is currently limited scientific evidence of the effect and training methods on dog welfare, the existing literature indicates that, at least to some level, aversive-based methods generate stress in dogs. However, further studies are needed to draw strong conclusions on the topic. This quote clearly does not support the existence of a scientific consensus that aversives are unnecessary. Suggestions do not consensus make. Finally, in addition to the effects on welfare, the efficacy of the training method is also relevant to consider in the choice of the training method. And regardless of what the science will have to say about the effects of the different training methods on dog welfare, it is important to note that the choice of training method should not only be based on the effects of animal welfare. Dog training is a purpose-built tool, and hence its efficacy should also be considered in the equation. At present, there is also a lack of scientific evidence on the efficacy of the different training methods, and it would be relevant to combine this aspect with research on the effects of different training methods on dog welfare. Now, not only does that not support the statement that there is a scientific consensus that aversives are unnecessary, it actually says the opposite. Learning through negative reinforcement and positive punishment has an important adaptive value, and that these mechanisms help animals to avoid and escape from dangerous or harmful situations. This quote also does not support the statement that there is a scientific consensus that aversives are unnecessary. It actually suggests a category of broad-based scenarios where aversives may be both necessary and ethical. One final quote from sufficiently reliable science. In the present paper, we present a comprehensive review of the scientific literature on the effects of the different training methods on dog welfare and behavioral problems. Generally, the existing research papers on the topic suggest a correlation between the use of aversive-based training methods and indicators of compromised welfare and behavioral problems in dogs. But the evidence at present is not as clear as some advocates of the contemporary dog training discussion claim. This clearly does not point to scientific consensus that the use of aversives are unnecessary. In fact, it suggests that there is no scientific consensus that they do lead to compromised welfare or behavioral problems in dogs. Okay, one more short quote. However, certain types of reward-based methods, namely reward-based responses to unwanted behavior, such as comforting dogs or petting or speaking with distracting with food and play, were also correlated with increased aggression and excitability. Does that mean that there is a scientific consensus that petting your dog is unnecessary, Zach? So, the issue here is not with science. The issue is that these studies have been cited for a proposition which they do not stand for. Put simply, the studies do not say what you say they say.
Because from what I can tell, there are a lot of people who are sick and tired of it, who are much smarter than us lowly dog trainers down here. And it's important to listen to people who have extensive knowledge on this topic and not be so arrogant as to think that, you know, we just possess all the knowledge and can override the scientific consensus because we feel like it. Like I've said before, I will change my mind. If the scientific consensus were to change based on empirical data, I have enough trust in the scientific community that I would say, hey, okay.
Are you willing to admit that the current scientific consensus is that there is no scientific consensus that aversives are unnecessary?
You lie a lot, unfortunate. Abandonment prevention, if you're saying I lie a lot, just tell me what I've lied about and I'll try and clear it up. And if I have lied and you caught me in a lie, let me clear it up right now because I don't want to lie. I want to be truthful and come at this in good faith. If I'm lying, so is the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior and two dozen other organizations nationwide.
Well, you said it, not me. I am perfectly willing to accept the existence of alternative explanations, including gross incompetence on the part of some and scientific illiteracy on the part of others.